each who feels himself as one with thee, know he is also one with every other. Thank you, everybody. Uh, our speaker today is going to be talking about the 7 Principles of Man by Annie Besant. This is the second session. And is this the concluding session, Vibha? Or,
yes.
So, Vibha, now, I mean, if you don't mind, we all know a lot about your biodata, but now I'd like you to ask you one question. Usually 7 years, it's 7 years since you started in the journey of theosophy. You say you joined in 2015, 22 marks 7 years. Do you notice any change in your thought process or your self in this particular year?
Definitely, Vimal. This was the first thought which came to my mind also, that 7 years is over, and everything in the universe follows this septenary cycle, and all the cells of our body get changed in 7 years. So when I started this journey in 2015, the thoughts which came to me, in some way, I'm sure they have altered not only my mental makeup, but also my physical makeup, because now 7 years are past. So that is what I think, and I really hope that that is the case.
Okay. So yes, please begin your talk.
Yes. Thank you so much, Vimal. And thank you, Brother Pradeep ji. And a very good morning and namaste to all of you, dear brothers and sisters. So today we will continue this book study, The 7 Principles of Man by Annie Besant. And I will share my screen for the slides. Okay. Yes. Correct. The 7 Principles of Man. So this is the book which is the first of the Theosophical manuals. And we, in our last session, we have completed the four lower principles, that is the lower quaternary. And we also started on the principle, the thinking principle, the thinker, which is the Manus. And we have seen a little bit about the lower Manus. We will continue from there now. So what we saw about the Manus was, so this all was completed. I will continue from slide 23. Just a brief recap about the Manus. What we saw is, Manus is nothing but the thinking principle, which is the manifestation of the self or manifestation of the divine thought on the mental plane. It has been called Manasputra. And how in the middle of the third root race, these Manasputra, they are the ones who were responsible for activating this latent principle in man. At that time, man was just the lower quaternary, which is the animal man. So the Manus was activated and the human soul was born. That is the human soul. The unfolding of Manus in this lower quaternary, it depends on 2 factors. This also we have seen, which is namely the soul age. Soul age is nothing but it is the time when the the principle of Manus got activated. So since that time, it is the immortal principle. So it is the same in every incarnation, and it is unfolding reincarnation after reincarnation. So depending on the soul age, how much it has unfolded. And the second factor which determines the unfolding of Manus is the karmic nature of the person. Karmic nature, whether it is disciplined or undisciplined, and the physical brain apparatus. So these 2 factors, they are governed by law of karma. Therefore, law of karma and soul age, they are the 2 determining factors in unfolding of Manus. So that is what we saw in our last session. Continuing further, let us look at some of the aspects of Manus. Now, we talk about genius. Whenever we say a person is very intelligent, we talk about him being a genius. We have also devised that scale, the IQ scale, which measures the intelligence quotient. I think if if the person who takes the test and he gets a score of more than 150 or 160, he is termed a genius. But HPB said that this is artificial genius. This is just the mental ability or the intellectual strength of the lower manas. And it is influenced by the karmic elements like passion, anger, pride. So let's take an example. Suppose a person is very intelligent. He's very good in academics, he's very good in his profession, and he's really intelligent. But say if the person has not overcome his anger and he gets very annoyed at certain things in life, the moment anger takes over his nature, his intelligence is of no use. He is incapable of making any logical decision. That is why it is said that when you are angry, don't take any decision. After your anger has passed, after you have cooled down, only then make any decisions. So you see, even intellect, it cannot make a decision if it is overcome by anger. So this kind of intelligence, genius, HPB called is artificial genius, because it gets swayed or it gets covered by these karmic elements. Then what is true genius? As per HPB, true genius is an aspect of the higher manas. There are various creative powers present and in the higher manas, and collectively they are called genius. Now, in the present stage of evolution, the higher manas, it can rarely manifest. Sometimes the lower manas may get a glimpse of what are the powers and abilities in the higher manas, those creative powers. But this requires utmost purity of life. And when we say purity, it is mansa vacha karmana. That means purity at the mental level. The thoughts have to be pure. Purity at the astral level, where our feelings, our desires, they have to be pure. And purity at the physical level, where all our actions and speech, they also should be pure. If a person lives such a life, then it is possible that not only his mind, that means not only his intelligence, but also this creative power of higher manas, they may be manifest in some aspect, to some extent. So as we continue our evolution, incarnation after incarnation, and we continue to live this life of purity on all three levels, mansa, vacha, karmana, then definitely in some incarnation, our genius will bloom forth. That is the plan, that is the future, that is the evolution of all men. It will definitely happen. So how does calm manas function? Calm manas, it informs the personality, the lower quaternary. And the unique thing about this manas, calm manas, is that it creates a feeling of separation from the rest. It deludes the personality into thinking that it is separate from the rest. Now, delusion is something very different from illusion. Delusion means that the mind will continue to hold on to its belief or to its impression, even though that belief is contradicted by reality. It is contradicted by reason, but the mind continues to hold that belief. That is delusion. And it is very difficult to get rid of this delusion of mind. You look at us, we know intellectually that yes, everything is one, everything is unity, but still we cannot experience it. We still experience ourselves separate from our neighbor, from our brother. Okay, so that is delusion. Delusion of separateness, unable to realize the unity behind everything. What is this?
Someone is, we have to remove notations, I think, that in your, sir, you have to remove this thing called notations. Where is it? Reactions mein hoga shayad.
Okay, I'll just share it once again.
Yeah.
This is what we were doing, aspects of manas. Is it visible? No.
No.
Okay, I'm sharing it again.
Vimalji, do I need anything to do?
No. I think some marks just came on the slide, so I was trying to now share it.
Marks come when somebody is using their phone, hand on their phone. There is a thing called notations, and in the settings we can remove that, but it's not in mine. I think only the host has that.
It's not in mine either. I hope.
No, it is okay.
Okay. Okay, so we talked about this delusion of separateness. The Manus forgets its divine source, that separateness intervenes, and the Manus becomes earthbound. It is swayed by all our karmic emotions. Now, till the time Manus is under the sway of karmic emotions, it is not pure as its source. What is the source of lower Manus? It is the higher Manus, which is nothing but a ray of the divine thought, the universal mind. So a person who's living his daily life, he's doing a lot of charity, he has very grand ambitions, and he has very lofty achievements, etc., everything. But if there is even the least bit of thought that he's doing this for recognition, or he wants praise, he wants his work to be recognized, then that means that he still has the feeling of separateness. So his mind is still tainted with karma, and it is not pure. Only absolute selflessness can get us into this purity of mind. Now, another aspect of Manas is the psychic energy. As we said, lower Manas is nothing but a ray from the higher Manas, a projection of the higher Manas, which illuminates the lower quaternary. Now, Manas is active on the mental plane. The matter of that is so subtle that it cannot directly influence the physical molecules. To impress itself on the physical molecules, it clothes itself in astral matter. So it is united to the karmic elements, and only then it is able to set the physical molecules of our brain in motion, in vibration. So the ability to set these physical molecules in vibration is the psychic action of Manas. And this psychic energy is what gives rise to our normal consciousness, waking consciousness, the consciousness of brain and of memory. All our lower mental and passional activities are due to this psychic energy. Now, anything which, when it is set in motion, it starts vibrating. So it is like a musical instrument. The body is also compared to a musical instrument, like you can compare it to a harp or a veena or a sitar, perhaps. When the strings of these musical instruments are plucked, it gives out melody. The melody is harmonious if that string has the proper tension, if it is made of the proper material. Same thing goes for our physical molecules. Our body, it is made up of these physical particles, atoms and molecules. And if they are damaged, how are they damaged? By consumption of alcohol, by consumption of meat, and by other excesses in life. Then their vibration does not give out harmonious melody. It gives out discordant notes. That is why there is so much of stress on living a sattvic life. Now, in this book, Annie Besant also talks about karmic organs. She says that liver and spleen are karmic organs. And HPB has mentioned that brain and heart are mansic organs. So what does this mean? The karmic organs are specifically those organs which will respond to the psychic energy. The psychic energy which is coming through the lower manas, through the karmic elements, through the astral matter, and then vibrating the cells of that organ. So liver and spleen are specifically karmic organs. And mansic energy means the direct radiation of the higher manas. When the energy of the higher manas, without passing through these karmic elements and astral matter, is able to vibrate the physical molecules of the organ, then that organ is called a mansic organ. So in our body, it is the heart and the brain which are able to respond directly to the light of the higher manas. Now, one thing we should keep in mind that basically the entire body, all the organs respond to karmic energy as well as mansic energy. It is only that which is more sensitive. So brain and heart are more sensitive. And this is very well explained in studies in occultism by HPP. She calls it psychic and noetic action. Another aspect of Manas is memory. So we saw that the waking consciousness and our memory, they are all functions of the psychic energy. And when the brain molecules vibrate in response to the impulse of lower Manas, that is what it gives rise to this physical memory, as we call it. It is memory of the personality, and it is transitory because personality is transitory. Memory of the eternal ego, which is the higher Manas. Higher Manas is eternal. So only whatever is stored in that higher Manas, that is eternal. And it stores the record of our past lives. But whatever memory we have in our personality, that will perish along with the personality. But we know that memory of past lives, it can be recovered. It can be brought into our waking consciousness. If we know the technique, if we have that discipline, and we can travel in consciousness up and down. What is this travel in consciousness? It is nothing but the lower Manas. Through the lower Manas, we are able to focus our consciousness in the higher Manas, where is stored the record of all our past lives. Then we can recover it. Normally in a regular course of evolution, this is a very advanced stage of human evolution. But we have read even present incidents in the present day times. There is this American psychoanalyst, Dr. Brian Weiss, and he treated his many patients through techniques like hypnotism, etc. He was able to take them into their previous incarnations. And he wrote a very famous book called Many Lives, Many Masters, in which there is, although the book is a novel, it's fiction, but it is based on how he treated those patients who were able to recall their previous lives through hypnotism. So a memory of past lives can be recovered. There are a few other aspects of Manas, lower Manas, which we will quickly cover. One is desire and free will. Will, we know, is Ichha Shakti. It is basically the energy of the higher self, the upper triad. It is the outgoing energy of self in Manas. And what is desire? Desire is driven by Kam, the external needs, the external requirements, maybe material requirements or requirements of the body. It gives rise to desire. I want to eat food. I want to drink water. I want this object. I want that object. So this is desire. Okay, because there is, so desire functions in the lower quaternary, whereas will, it comes from the upper triad. Now, till the time Kam is unconquered, because Kam is what gives rise to desire. So till that time, desire will dominate the will. But if Kam is conquered, then the higher will comes into picture. Our life is guided by our will. Then the next aspect is true genius, which we have already seen. True genius is an aspect of the higher Manas, and very closely related to it is seership. So what is seership? Seer means a person who can see. He can see into what? He can see into the future or perhaps the past. So as we said that in the higher Manas, all the memories are stored. And higher Manas is nothing. It's the essence of that is same as the universal mind, because it is the ray of the universal mind. And universal mind is omniscient. It has all the knowledge. It is the divine knowledge of past, present, and future. From this reservoir of knowledge, our lower Manas can catch an occasional glimpse. Now that too, those are subject to conditions of living a pure life. And when this lower Manas is able to catch a glimpse and transmit it to our waking memory, then that person becomes a seer, because that memory, it is imprinted on the physical brain cells. So such a person is a seer, and such persons are extremely rare. Another aspect of lower Manas is mediumship, people who are mediums. This again, I think we touched upon this in the beginning. Medium is a person who is able to communicate with those entities who no longer have the physical body. They are dwelling in the astral plane for a while. So this is not a good thing. Theosophy discourages this, because in this communication, the will of the person who's the medium, it is totally subjugated. He becomes passive. His own will is not functioning, and he is controlled by that entity. His own astral spirit is also subjugated. It is benumbed. So mediumship, it is actually the opposite of adeptship. In adeptship, the person, the aspirant or the adept, his will force is very strong. He is controlling not only his own self, but also these inferior potencies. So mediumship is strongly discouraged. It should not be indulged into. Okay. Now we come to how the lower Manus, what can be the paths which he can choose. The lower Manus may rise towards its source. Lower Manus is a projection of the higher Manus, a ray. So it may aspire, it may rise towards its source, the higher Manus. Second option or second path, it may partially aspire upwards towards its source and partially tend downwards. And third path that it may take is that it totally breaks away from its source and becomes one with the lower quaternary, with calm principle instead of Manas. So we will see all these paths one by one. The first path, when we say that the lower Manas rises towards its source. This is same as saying to become one with the Father in heaven. This is what Annie Besant writes. And what this means is that the Mansik ray, which was projected into the personality, it becomes one with its radiant source, the higher Manas. So now mind becomes master of calm. This lower nature of ours, of our personality, it becomes attuned to the higher nature. Not only our mind, but also our body becomes responsive to the higher nature. And we have already seen this happens through our conscious effort, incarnation after incarnation. So we have to continue this discipline in successive incarnations. And as our body becomes more and more sensitive and tuned to the vibrations of our higher self, we need less and less matter of astral plane through which the influences can be transmitted to us. We have seen that lower Manas clothes itself in astral matter and then impresses itself on the physical body or the physical brain. But when the higher Manas through the lower Manas is directly able to create these impressions on our physical molecules, then we don't require the coarse astral matter. It is actually the coarse astral matter which clouds our vision. It clouds our divine nature because it is the plane of karmic principle. Now, once the lower Manas is purified, becomes one with its source, then the adept stands complete. For such a person, there is no more birth and death. His wheel of incarnation is over. He can still incarnate at will, and he chooses to do that, to do special service to mankind. Or he may choose not to incarnate. He can remain without a physical body on the planes around Earth and help in further evolution, not only of mankind, but also of our Earth. So this was the path when Manas rises upwards. Lower Manas rises to its source. Now for the average humanity, what happens is that the lower Manas may partially aspire to its source and partially it is still pulled by this principle of calm. So this is referred to as the battle, the war, which is going on between these two principles on the lower Mansik region, on the lower Manas, between Manas and calm. Now, when physical death occurs, then the lower Manas, which was informing the personality, it dwells in the astral body for a while. And whatever noble aspirations the person had during his earth life, whatever was good and virtuous in him, what was unsoiled, that gets disentangled from the astral body and it remains dormant. And the astral body, that becomes the calm roop. Now, when this Mansik ray, which has, from which, all these noble and higher thoughts have been disentangled, it will rather go back to its source. See, only that which is pure can go back to its source because the higher Manas is absolutely pure. And all our life experiences are assimilated with it. Those experiences which were noble and pure. Then this Mansik ego is Atma Buddhi Manas. It goes into the Devachanic state. So the experiences which we had in our earth life, which were pure, and they disentangled from the principle of calm, they were reabsorbed and assimilated in the higher manas, and then they go into Devachan. So this Devachanic experience, it is like a continuation of earth life, but it does not have any sorrows. It doesn't have any pain. And whatever good and noble things we aspired during our earth life, they find their completion. They get fulfilled in the Devachanic plane. So it is very important, first of all, to understand that the Devachanic state is subjective because it is a mental state. So my Devachanic state will be different from somebody else's. Yours will be different from somebody else. Okay, it is what we think, that is what we find. Each one finds his own heaven. This is heaven. And duration of this Devachanic state, it will last, for an average man, it lasts about 1,500 years. This is what is written in the Theosophic literature. Now, what happens to the lower manas, which that part of the astral body, which is the spook with all its karmic principles. So that desire body or spook, it will no longer have any mind, the mental principle. The manas is no longer there. So it behaves very mechanically based on the tendencies that the person had while he was still living. Okay, and this spook or the calm roop, it will last for a duration that depends on how strong his karmic tendencies were. If the karmic tendencies, the passional nature was very weak, then very quickly this calm roop will disintegrate. But if the passional tendencies were very strong, then it will persist for a longer time. And because it does not have any manas principle, it is devoid of any good or moral impulses. It has only this magnetic affinity. It will be drawn to those places where passions and emotions similar to what it had experienced during earth life. Such kind of passions and emotions, wherever they are getting fulfilled, it will be attracted magnetically to those places. So living people, if where they are indulging in such activities, they invariably and inevitably attract such spooks to that place. And there is a two-way action. Not only the spook is magnetically affecting these people, but these people are also, their magnetism is also affecting the spook. And the animal nature of such people, it becomes more and more potent. Their will becomes more and more weakened. So it's a very vicious circle. And that is why we must ensure a strong and active will and a pure heart. These are our best defenses to protect ourselves from such kind of entities. So this is, I think, one of the main objectives of Theosophy. It prevents superstition by an accurate understanding of what is their nature, what are the conditions or the laws under which it functions, and how we can protect ourselves from this. Otherwise, we see in society there is a lot of misconception and superstition attached to what happens after death. So we need to definitely protect ourselves from such kind of magnetic influences. Next, we come to the third path. The third path is when the lower manas breaks away totally from its source and it becomes one with calm. So this is a very sorry state of affair, and it is very rare also. The personality may be so karmic that this slender thread between the higher and lower manas snaps in two. Slender thread is, it's not a real physical thread. It is just the magnetic link. Okay. So this may happen during earth life itself. The person is so of such a wild nature, such an animal-like nature, that no guiding influence from higher manas is able to impress itself on the personality through the lower manas, because lower manas is totally swayed by calm. Now, after death, for such a person, his calm roop is very strong because there is a lot of that mansic element. The entire lower manas is now assimilated into the principle of calm. So it remains as an entity, and the most dangerous part is that such an entity can reincarnate. It can take a physical body even without going through all the higher states of post-death of physical body. And then he may incarnate as a very vile and brute person. I think if we study human history, we can find such characters who have been very vile, very animal-like, who have committed such atrocities which are unthinkable. So when we read this description, what happens to lower manas if it is totally disconnected from its source, then yes, such entities may be born on earth. And then for that particular incarnation, the higher self, that is the immortal ego, it has gained no experience. Nothing, no experience of that earth life has been assimilated into the higher self. It has been a complete failure. So that completes the lower manas. So we will see some forms of the fourth principle, that is the karmic principle, and the fifth principle, that is the manas. So we have seen astral body, which is made out of the material of astral plane, and it is a true body. What do we mean that it is a real body? It is not an illusion. In the beginning, when we began the study, the physical body, so every molecule or particle of the physical body, it is surrounded and interpenetrated by the astral particle or the astral matter. Okay. Just imagine every particle of our physical body is surrounded and interpenetrated by astral matter. Now, for an instant, just think if the physical molecules, they cease to exist. Suppose there's a light switch, you switch it off and physical molecules, they just fade out. So what is left? The corresponding astral particles. So the exact person is there in the astral plane. Okay, that is the astral body. And this astral body, in our waking consciousness also, it can be projected out, it can be separated from physical body, and it can travel to any distant place. And it travels at the speed of thought. It can gather impressions from the astral plane and impress them back on the physical brain. And a trained student can very well do this. Unconsciously, there are other people also who are able to project their astral body. Mediums may project it unconsciously, or even clairvoyant people, they can not only see in the astral light, but unconsciously they might be projecting their astral body. And also people who are dying, who are leaving their physical body, they also unconsciously may project their astral bodies. There have been many incidents and reported news where such cases have been noted. Actually, this has happened in my family too. The dying person, if he loves somebody very dearly, his thoughts will be with that person during dying. The astral body gets projected to that person who was very dear to the dying person. It happens. Then in seance rooms, the medium may unknowingly project his astral body. This we have always seen. Okay. So that is as far as projection of our astral body. Next is the Mayavi Roop, projection of Mayavi Roop, which is a mental body. So this is a illusion, body of illusion. It is made up of the matter belonging to mental plane, and it is formed consciously by a very evolved person, by adept or his disciple. And they can give it any form, any shape, which is suited for their purpose, why they want that Mayavi Roop to come into being. So this body can be used with full consciousness by the adept. It can travel to any distance. It can gather all the information. And the most important thing is that it can be made indistinguishable from physical body. What it means is, it is not like if you will extend your hand and try to touch that person, the Mayavi Roop, your hand will pass through his body. No, that will not happen. It will feel to you as if it is a real physical body. That is what, that is how that Mayavi Roop can be created by an adept who knows how to use the mental body. So this Mayavi Roop, it is a Mansik creation. It is not a psychic creation. It doesn't belong to the lower planes. It is formed out of the manas. And a chela can do this only under instruction by his guru. Now let us look at the powers of higher manas. We have seen the aspects of lower manas. Now let us look what are the powers of higher manas. The first and most important is free will, Ichha Shakti. Everything happens by Ichha Shakti. If we don't have a Ichha Shakti, we will not do anything. कुछ इच्छा ही नहीं है तो हम कुछ करेंगे ही नहीं. So Now this is important, so I'm repeating it again, that Manas is a ray of the universal mind. Manas is manifestation of the divine thought on the mental plane. So it is, you can call it Mahat. Universal mind is nothing but Mahat. And this highest, what we call the divine, the one absolute, that is Sat Chit Anand. And Ichha Shakti resides in that. Ichha Shakti, Gyan Shakti, Kriya Shakti. So Ichha Shakti is said as the outgoing energy, outgoing radiation of the spirit. So this free will, because it is the outgoing energy of the universal mind, therefore it resides in Manas, because Manas is a ray of the universal mind. Now, only when this will is unconditioned, then it is free. The moment it gets conditioned, it is bound by the law. So which law? There are two aspects. First of all, why I'm saying two aspects? The two aspects are spirit and matter. Okay. So it is the will which manifests the universe, the will of the divine. The divine will crystallizes itself and the successive planes of matter are formed. And as these planes of matter are formed, the will get conditioned by the law of manifestation of that plane. Okay, so this is one aspect. The second aspect is the aspect of spirit. So these Mansik entities which are formed, they are nothing but differentiation of the will. Mansik entity is the Manasputra. It is the manifestation of divine thought or that divine will on the Mansik plane. So it is conditioned by the nature of its manifesting potency. On which plane it has got manifested, it is conditioned by that. And though it is true that this free will and it will inhere in Manas, it resides in Manas. Okay, but it will work within the limits of the manifesting plane. So this is how it gets limited. Now, as the higher Manas tries to manifest itself on the lower planes, it is again bound by the nature of the lower plane, astral plane and physical plane. That also we have seen. So the lower Manas, which is a projection, a ray of the higher Manas, it informs the personality, is immersed in the personality and becomes the organ of free will on the physical plane. And it is by nature of this free will of the lower Manas that man can assert himself over the karmic principle. He has this freedom of choosing because the free will resides in Manas. And when lower Manas rules calm, then man works by his Ichha Shakti. The lower quaternary becomes subservient to the higher triad. Another power of higher Manas is the Kriya Shakti. Kriya Shakti, normally we don't see it, many people having it. It is the mysterious power of thought. But again, there are some incidents which have been recorded in contemporary times where a man was able to bend a spoon by looking at it, by his thought. I don't know how far that was a trick or whether it was really a Kriya Shakti. But yes, what is Kriya Shakti? It is the mysterious power of thought. It produces external, perceptible and phenomenal results by the energy inherent in thought. Now, it is a very ancient belief. People knew that if you concentrate on any idea or any thought for a long time and with deep concentration, then that idea will manifest. Then that thing will manifest. And not only thought, even the will. Will is volition. So intense volition, if you have this intense willpower and your thought, together they can manifest whatever your idea is. And that was what was called magic. If you remember in the medieval times, many people who had these kind of abilities, they were called witches and sorcerers, and they were persecuted and killed. It was nothing but these kind of powers which they were wielding. Kriya Shakti. Seership and genius we have already seen, so I will not go over it again because we are running short of time. Then coming to intuition. Now, intuition is one aspect which we have seen. Intuition means simply insight. What is insight? Insight is the unerring recognition of a truth presented on mental plane. What this means is that we don't have to go through a process of logical deduction, no analysis, no logical deduction, induction, inference. No, nothing of that sort. We know something is true. It is just a recognition. That is intuition. We know something is true, something is going to happen, or something, this is not right. This is what is called insight. And we cannot give any proof for that. This is what is described as the voice of our inner self. And what Annie Besant says, that careful and prolonged training is necessary to recognize it with certainty. This is very important, to recognize it with certainty, because many times we mistake our instinct for this intuition. Instinct is nothing, it is that karmic impulse. It is the impulse of our personality, of the lower self. And this instinct, all the animals have. All animals live by instinct. You might have seen in the forest that there is a deer and he's eating grass, and suddenly he becomes aware that there is danger. A tiger is lurking nearby. So these are animal instincts. They are not intuition. And the second thing which gets mistaken is reasoning ability. That is a faculty of physical brain, of the lower manas. Now, this physical intelligence, it is dependent on evidence from the senses. So it will always go through a process of deduction and analysis. That is not intuition. What is intuition is? It is direct insight. It is knowing without any reason. So the spirit knows independent of reason. We can call it, it is our conscience. Conscience tells you what is right, what is not. Just, I think yesterday or day before, we studied in the Mahatma letters, conscience can tell you what is right and wrong, but it cannot tell you what to do. Okay, it just tells you what is right and what is wrong. So a man who has conquered his personality, his lower nature, and he can directly receive the impulses from his higher self, then he becomes intuitionally illuminated. He cannot err in his judgment, because that knowledge is the direct knowledge. So that is called, his higher self is called the shining ogoides. We will see what is shining ogoides. That is the Christ principle. So this brings us to the next aspect of higher manas, what we call the Christ principle. So ogoides, the word meaning of that is a self-luminous body. Self-luminous is very important. It doesn't need an external source of fire to illuminate it. It is shining material, self-luminous. And this body is nothing but when the manas becomes pure and is reunited to its source. Manas united to Atma Buddhi, that is the ogoides. And that is the real object of our aspiration. So when manas is assimilated by buddhi, that is our spiritual ego, the buddhi manas, that is called the Christ principle. But in our daily lives, manas is always influenced by calm, is being attracted by calm. So this is the crucifixion of Christ. The spiritual ego is daily being crucified, because instead of going towards its source, it is being pulled towards calm. And nothing from the higher self is able to guide it. Now, because the essence of manas is same as the essence of universal mind, so there is a continual yearning for the manas to reunite with its source. See, like attracts like. So this is the inherent impulse, and it is inextinguishable. It is there in everybody. In some people, it might be dormant for now and they are more attracted by calm. But in some people, it might already be activated, and those people are always attracted towards the divine. They tend to lead a spiritual life. This is what is called mumukshatva. Mumukshatva becomes activated. The lower manas tends to its source. And it is only in the final initiation of an aspirant, of an candidate, that this manas will no longer be dual. That means it will not be attracted by calm, and it will be totally assimilated with its source. So it becomes one with the Christ principle, and then the adept becomes complete. So unity with his true self is what happens. So then the adept, he will have the full powers as an immortal spiritual intelligence, and then he can rule his personality and carry out the work through his immortal spiritual intelligence. Manas becomes one with Atma Buddhi. as we have seen that the wheels of reincarnation stop, he becomes a Jivan Mukt. So that completes the Manas principle. I have given more time to that principle because that is what we are dealing with it on a day-to-day basis in our life. Now we will look very quickly the last principle, which is Atma Buddhi. It is also called the monad or the spirit. Atma is the spirit. And there are actually everything that is in manifestation is nothing but an aspect of that one absolute, which is the spirit. In the aspect of life, it is called one life. In the aspect of material planes, it is called Mool Prakriti. In the aspect of consciousness which knows, it is called the divine thought. So the knower, the known, and the knowledge, everything is nothing but the aspects of that one absolute, the eternal existence. So one life is an aspect of eternal existence, and it is pervading the entire universe. The eternal existence, it projects forth as Atma, which is our self, the capital S. And it is the same for a man as well as for the universe. This is called the breath. Why is it called the breath? Because breath means something which comes and goes. Inhalation, exhalation, coming in, going out, coming in, going out. And that is what happens. It is manifesting and then becoming unmanifest. Again, it manifests. For example, universe, it manifests and again becomes unmanifest. Same for man. He's born and then again he dies. Again he's born, again he dies. But this Atma is constant. It doesn't change and it is eternal. It is the one reality. And all our principles are nothing but essence of this Atma. It is said in Vedanta, Atma is that knowing which everything else is known. Now, Atma is pure spirit. It is an abstract principle. And to manifest itself, it needs a material vehicle. So Buddhi is the vehicle which serves as the vehicle for Atma. It serves as the medium for manifesting. Buddhi is also the faculty for cognizing, for discernment, for direct knowledge. It is the divine consciousness, and it is the channel through which this divine knowledge reaches the ego, the individual. So Buddhi is the spiritual soul or divine ego when it is in close union with Manas, because Manas is what individualizes the entity. And otherwise, without union with Manas, it is just the vehicle of Atma. So Atma Buddhi is a universal principle. Oh, it is right here. Atma Buddhi is a universal principle. Now, Atma, a spirit, is conscious on its own plane. It is all potent, all powerful. But to gain self-consciousness on lower planes and to experience them, it needs this individualizing. So universal means all pervading, but it needs to become individual. And this happens through the mind principle, when the mind principle is united with Atma Buddhi. Now, and mind principle is nothing. It is but the same divine thought. The one absolute in its aspect of divine thought manifests as Manas. And when this Manas unites with Atma Buddhi, it becomes the individual. It becomes the human trinity. Only when this Manas is merged with Buddhi, only then the spirit evolves self-consciousness on all the planes. And how that happens, that was the whole thing that we studied in this book, that how the lower Manas, it gathers the experience of the personality, carries it back to its source. Everything noble gets assimilated with higher Manas. It is stored in every incarnation, and Buddhi becomes, ultimately, this Manas is purified and Buddhi becomes assimilated with it, permeated with this Atmic life. It becomes a true trinity. The spirit becomes self-conscious on all the planes. And that is the objective of our existence. So there are
ସିଏ ଯାହା ଆମ ସାନ ପୁଅର ପୁଅଟି ସେଇଆ.
So there are many people who demand proof of this, but there is no proof because these things are beyond the physical intelligence. And it is said that only to the spirit can the spirit be demonstrated. Now, as we said that Atma is the one reality. And to manifest, it needs a material basis, which is the buddhi. So Atma Buddhi together is called monad. This term monad means one, mono. It comes from mono. So when this monad, when the spirit is manifested in the universe, it is called monad. And this becomes the driving force in every atom, in every form. It becomes the driving force for evolution. This monad is immanent in all. And as it says, you can understand the term monolithic. It is one, it is undivided. It cannot be that you have your monad and my monad, or human monad and plant monad. No, it is not like that. It is a monolith. I mean, words are inadequate to describe it. It is a universal principle. That is a better description. And this drives all these forms and every atom towards its source. Since monad is all pervading, it is there in every atom. So there is nothing as dead matter. Everything is life, because an aspect of the absolute is the one life, and that also inheres in every atom. So everything in universe is endowed with a consciousness, and that consciousness will function according to on which plane it is manifested. It will have that kind of perception. So by this law of evolution, these forms, they evolve from mineral to plant to animal to human, and each form will manifest as much of that one life as it is capable of expressing. So we have seen in animal, it is only the karmic principle, the instinct, which is activated. But as the life moves to the next higher form, the human form, then the principle of Manus gets activated. And this principle is capable of making the man realize himself as the divine. So monad is the spiritual essence which is energizing all these forms in all the kingdoms. And it is through Manas that this Atma Buddhi, they become individual, they become human. But we must remember that this Atma Buddhi, it is same for all. Annie Besant very beautifully, she has compared it to a sun. We are looking at it through colored glasses. So we can see a red sun, a green sun, a blue sun, depending on the glass. That is what that glass is, Manas. When we look through this mirror, through the glass of Manas, then we see individuals. But actually it is the same one sun, one Atma Buddhi, which is shining on all, or which is being expressed in all. Now, this is my last slide, and with this I will conclude, and then we can take your questions or any discussions. So this is a very beautiful, beautiful conversation between the Guru and the Chela, which is given in the Occult Catechism. And I always like this very much. I'll just read it for you. The Guru asks, "Lift thy head, O Lanu. Dost thou see one or countless lights above thee, burning in the dark midnight sky?" And then the Chela answers, "I sense one flame, O Gurudev. I see countless undetached sparks shining in it." That flame is the Atma Buddhi. It is the universal principle. And these countless undetached sparks, they are nothing but the Manas, which has become individualized. So this, in its real essence, it is the same. That light is the same in all men. There is nothing called as your soul or my soul. And it is only that through our karma, through our personality, these garments that we are wearing, that we get deluded into saying my soul and your soul. So this journey of the monad, as we have seen, it will continue through all kingdoms, and it is only in the human kingdom, by the Manas, it is able to realize its real self, self with capital S. And that completes the 7 principles of man. And towards the end, Annie Besant has suggested some lines of inquiry to those people who want proof of all these propositions. So she has said that the people who have developed the faculty to experience these things, they don't need proof. And for those people who have not developed those faculty, no proof can be given because it is beyond reason. So no reasoning can be given. Having said that, she still gives some lines of inquiry. They can be like to explore dream consciousness, which functions on astral plane, to explore the phenomena of hypnotism and mesmerism, to explore the phenomena of thought transference, transferring our thought from one person to the other person directly. So these are some lines of inquiry. If science will inquire into it, they will come up with some knowledge which will point towards these propositions which are given in the 7 principles of human being. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vibha. It was just wonderful. And I think you have done this same lecture series, but it was a longer program, I think, for the Philippines Society, Theosophical Society.
It was a shorter one. It was just one lecture based on man, know thyself. Actually, man, know thyself means Atma Vidya, to know yourself, Atma Vidya. And that is what HPB stressed all along.
Okay, so we open up for questions and answers or comments.
Thank you, ma'am, for your interesting lecture. There is a slight confusion in my mind.
Yes.
Like at times you used soul and at times you used the word spirit.
Okay, so see, okay, let me tell you what soul is. It is, if we consider man as a triune, then spirit, soul, and body are the 3 aspects. Soul is defined in theosophic literature as human soul, animal soul, and spiritual soul. So, see, everything revolves around the Manus, I would say. When the Manus is assimilated with the karmic principle, that is the animal soul, because here the principle of calm is more strong and Manus is swayed by that. So that is animal soul. When the human mind is functioning, that is the human soul, Manas. And when Manas is assimilated with the principle of Buddhi, that becomes the divine soul, because then it becomes pure, tends towards Buddhi. So this is soul, okay? This is what is soul. Manas towards calm is animal soul. Manas itself is human soul. We saw how the human soul is born, right, by the Manasputra. And then Manas tending towards Buddhi, assimilated by Buddhi, is the divine soul or the spiritual soul. Okay. And the other term that was used was the spirit. So what is the spirit? This is when we look at the universals. Before the universes manifest, there is one absolute. And to manifest, it needs 2 aspects. It has to become dual. So what are those 2 aspects? It is the aspect of spirit and matter. So for anything to manifest, there has to be an object which is manifesting, and there has to be somebody who knows that object. Okay, so spirit becomes the reference point for all the consciousnesses, the knower, and matter becomes okay, the planes, the different planes, and also out of this the objects which are known by the knower. So spirit becomes consciousness and matter becomes all the objects. The knower knows the known. That is the knowledge. So then, this relation is there. Knower, known, and knowledge. Okay. So spirit is an abstract principle. It is, you can call it an aspect of the one absolute. Whereas soul is on these planes, the Buddhic, Manasic, and the astral plane. Manas uniting with calm principle is animal soul. Manas is human soul. Manas uniting with Buddhic principle is the spiritual soul. I hope it throws some light on these terms.
Yes, ma'am. Can we give it a simile like spirit is ocean, whereas soul is river?
You can use any simile. Yes.
No, am I getting it correct or not? That's why I asked you.
Yes, why not?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question, Vinita. Is there anybody else who would like to ask anything?
Yes, madam. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
एक पुस्तक है बी ए लैम्प अनटू योरसेल्फ के सच्चिदानंद मूर्ति की,
जी
उसमें लिखा है कि whenever there is doubt as to what is right action for good people, it is the judgment of their inner instrument. ब्रैकेट में लिखा अंतःकरण। ये जो अंतःकरण है और इंट्यूशन एक ही बात है क्या?
अंतःकरण वेदांत में इसकी कुछ अलग व्याख्या दी गई है, बट यस इट इज इंट्यूशन, बिकॉज इंट्यूशन इज द डायरेक्ट परसेप्शन, इट इज द डायरेक्ट नॉलेज।
ओके, थैंक यू।
वेलकम।
Anybody else?
विभा जी नमस्कार, और सभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स को बहुत बहुत नमस्कार।
नमस्ते वसुमती जी।
एक्सीलेंट प्रेजेंटेशन के लिए बहुत बहुत साधुवाद। आप
Thank
अपनी
you.
वाणी से ऐसा ही लोगों को प्रेरित करते रहें, ऐसी हमारी शुभकामना है। आप
थैंक यू सो मच, आपका आशीर्वाद बना रहे।
बहुत अच्छा प्रेजेंट किया आपने।
थैंक यू।
Okay, so shall we close today or shall we continue for a few more minutes?
Yes, we can close.
I request Mitalani sister to please take us to the higher planes with her beautiful prayer.
Namaste to all. Asato ma sadgamaya tamastu ma jyotirgamaya mriturma amrutangamaya sarve bhavantu sukhinah sarve santu niramaya सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु न कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति।
Thank you everyone for joining in today, and hope to see you all in the evening in Pragya CS Studios bhajan session today at 5 p.m. It promises to be very interesting. It's going to be again a path breaker, a new kind of thing, experimentation.